Please don't leave me here." Those were the first words Micah heard. Thin, cracking, barely surviving the cold air behind the pharmacy. He turned and saw her. A woman collapsed against a dumpster, gray hair fanned across the concrete, one trembling hand reaching toward him as if he were the last person on earth who could save her. Her breathing was wrong, too fast, too shallow, too close to failing. Micah froze. He was a homeless kid hiding in the alley, not a hero, not someone adults trusted, not someone the world ever stopped for. But she wasn't looking at him with suspicion. She was looking at him with fear. Real fear. "Please," she whispered, voice fading. "Don't let me die alone." Micah's cracked phone wouldn't turn on. His hands were shaking. Cars ignored him when he screamed for help. People walked past without even slowing down, and her eyes were closing. He had seconds to decide, run like he always had, or do the one thing no one had ever done for him. Stay. Micah dropped to his knees beside her, heart pounding, the weight of a stranger's life suddenly in his trembling hands. And what he did next would ignite a chain of events that neither of them saw coming. One that would shake an entire city, expose a secret world of power, and change Micah Turner's life forever. Because the woman he found in that alley wasn't just a woman, and saving her, that was only the beginning. This is Hidden Black Echoes, where the stories of struggles are told, the rise and the voice of those the world tried to silence. If you believe compassion shouldn't depend on wealth, age, or appearance, hit like and subscribe. Because in the next few minutes, you'll see how a homeless boy's courage exposed the world's indifference and changed a powerful woman's life forever. Micah dropped to his knees beside her. "Ma'am, I think this is serious." She gave a weak nod that almost didn't happen. Her lips were turning pale. Too pale. Micah's hands shook as he pulled the cracked little phone he'd found months ago. It only worked in bursts. Sometimes it called, sometimes it didn't. But he kept it for emergencies. This was an emergency. He pressed the power button. Nothing. Pressed again. Still nothing. His breath caught. "Come on. Come on." He hit it against his palm. The screen flickered to life, then died. Micah exhaled shakily and looked at the woman. Her eyes were barely open now. He didn't have time. Micah stood and bolted into the street. Cars honked as he waved both arms, screaming, "Help! Somebody help! She's dying! Please!" A man rolled down his window just enough to yell, "Get out of the road, kid!" A woman hurried past, clutching her purse tighter at the sight of him. Nobody stopped. Micah ran back into the alley. His sneakers slapped the concrete. "Ma'am, you stay awake, okay? I'm right here. I'm right here." Her eyelids fluttered again. "You came back?" Micah nodded quickly. "Yeah, I'm not leaving." Her fingers brushed his wrist. Barely there. "You're a good boy." The words almost broke him. People rarely said things like that to him. People rarely said anything to him at all. Micah took a deep breath and made a decision. He crouched behind her, slid one arm under her back, and the other beneath her legs. She was heavier than she looked, nothing like hauling cardboard or lifting scrap. But he lifted anyway. He staggered, knees nearly buckling, but he held on. Evelyn let out a small groan of pain. I can't." "Yes, you can," Micah muttered, breathless. "You gotta. Come on." He pushed forward, step by shaking step, carrying her out of the alley. His arms burned. His spine felt like it would snap in half. But he kept going. People stared as he emerged onto the sidewalk, a tiny homeless boy hauling an unconscious woman. A few gasped. One woman screamed, "Is she okay?" Micah's knees finally gave out. He collapsed, still holding Evelyn so she wouldn't hit the ground. "She needs an ambulance!" he cried, voice cracking. "Please!" This time, someone listened. A man grabbed his phone. A couple knelt. Someone covered Evelyn with their coat. Another shouted directions. Micah sat there, panting, shaking, holding the woman's hand like she was his own family. Her eyes barely opened. "You saved me," she breathed. "You saved my life." Micah's throat closed. He shook his head. "I just didn't want you to die alone." Her lips curved, just faintly. Not into a smile, into a promise. A siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. Micah didn't know her name. He didn't know her power. He didn't know the world she came from, the world she owned. He didn't know that saving her life would soon turn his upside down, shake an entire city, and make headlines. He didn't know anything at all, except that he stayed, and that changed everything. The sliding doors burst open with a rush of cold air, and Micah stumbled inside with the help of two strangers who had followed him from the street. Nurses raced forward, lowering Evelyn onto a gurney. "Female 60s, severe chest pain, unresponsive," one shouted. "Get her to resuscitation," another barked. Within seconds, they wheeled her away, leaving Micah standing alone in the middle of the emergency room, breathing hard, clothes stained with alley dust, arms shaking from the weight he had carried. The people who brought him here disappeared as quickly as they arrived. He was alone again. A security guard approached, tall and stiff. Micah's heart clenched. He braced for the usual questions. "Kid," the guard said, looking him up and down. "Where are your parents?" Micah shook his head. I don't have any." The guard sighed. His expression softened, but only a little. "Just wait right here." Micah nodded and backed into a corner, hugging his backpack. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him. The smell of antiseptic stung his nose. Every passing nurse made him flinch. Hospitals weren't places kids like him went willingly. Minutes crawled by. Then a doctor stepped out of the room where they had taken Evelyn. He looked serious, focused, but not panicked. Micah straightened. The doctor's eyes landed on him. "You're the boy who brought her in?" Micah swallowed. Yes, sir." The doctor approached, kneeling so he was eye level with Micah. "You did something incredibly brave." His voice was warm, steady. "She wouldn't have survived if you hadn't acted when you did." Micah's chest tightened. He looked down at the floor. I just didn't want her to die alone." The doctor's expression flickered. Something like surprise, something like respect. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Micah Turner." "Well, Micah, my name is Dr. Alvarez." He placed a hand on Micah's shoulder, and Micah stiffened instinctively. The doctor noticed, and lifted his hand away respectfully. "She's stable for now. We're running tests. It looks like a major cardiac event." Micah didn't know the term, but the tone scared him. She'll live?" he whispered. "We're doing everything we can." The doctor gave a small smile. "Would you like to sit closer, in case she wakes up and asks for you?" Micah blinked. "Asks for him? Nobody ever asked for him." He nodded. Dr. Alvarez guided him to a seat just outside the glass window of the treatment room. Machines hummed inside. Evelyn lay motionless beneath a thin blanket, oxygen tube in her nose, chest rising and falling shallowly. She looked nothing like the powerful woman Micah had seen collapse in the alley. Here, she looked fragile, breakable, human. Micah hugged his knees and watched the monitors nervously. He didn't know how long he sat there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. But he didn't move. He was afraid that if he left, something terrible would happen. A nurse passed and frowned sympathetically. "Sweetheart, do you have anyone we can call for you?" Micah shook his head quickly. "No, I'm fine. Please don't make me leave." The nurse softened. "You saved her life. No one's making you leave." Micah exhaled slowly. Relief washed over him like warm water. Then, a weak knock on the glass. Micah jerked up. Evelyn's hand had moved, just barely. Her eyes were half open, unfocused but searching for him. Micah stood, heart racing. A nurse quickly entered the room, adjusting her oxygen tube, whispering words Micah couldn't hear. Evelyn's gaze drifted, then locked onto Micah through the glass. Even in her weakness, her eyes widened. She recognized him. She lifted a trembling hand toward him, but it didn't reach far enough. Her lips moved silently. Micah knew what she was trying to say. "You stayed." The nurse gave Micah a small nod, signaling it was okay to come inside. Micah entered slowly, feeling like he didn't belong in a place so bright, so clean, so full of people who had homes and families. But Evelyn turned her head weakly toward him. Her voice was fragile, scratchy. "You didn't leave me." Micah shook his head. "No, ma'am." She gave the ghost of a smile. "You're a good boy." Those words again, words he almost couldn't bear to hear. I just did what anyone would," he whispered. "No." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Not anyone." Her breathing hitched. The machines beeped. A nurse stepped forward. "Ma'am, you should rest." Evelyn tried to lift her hand again. Micah gently reached out and held it steady so she didn't have to struggle. Her eyes softened at the touch. "Thank you," she murmured. Micah lowered his head so she wouldn't see the emotion on his face. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know her identity or her world. He didn't know the power she carried or the empire her signature controlled. But her grip tightened faintly around his fingers. And that touch, small, weak, fading, felt like the beginning of something huge, something that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his life. If moments like this pull you in, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more stories where strangers collide, choices matter, and one decision can change a life forever. Micah sat on the edge of a stiff hospital chair, legs dangling, backpack clutched tightly against his chest. The consultation room was too clean, too bright, too quiet. It made him uneasy. Dr. Alvarez walked in, closing the door gently behind him. But his expression had changed. Calmer, yes? Yet strangely serious. "Micah," he said, taking a seat across from him, "I need to ask you something important." Micah tensed. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Dr. Alvarez said quickly. "Not at all. In fact, what you did saved her life." Micah relaxed an inch. "But there's something you should know," the doctor continued, folding his hands. "The woman you brought in, she isn't just any woman." Before he could finish, the door opened again. 3 people stepped inside, 2 women in tailored suits and a man with silver hair and a tense jawline. They moved with purpose, like shadows that belonged in a boardroom, not a hospital. Micah immediately shrank back. The man spoke first. Where is she? Is she stable? Dr. Alvarez nodded. For now, yes. But it was close. The woman beside him exhaled shakily. My God, this could have destroyed the company. Micah blinked. Company? The silver-haired man finally noticed him. His sharp expression softened. You're the boy? He asked. Micah didn't answer. He wasn't used to strangers saying anything gently. Dr. Alvarez stepped in. This is Micah Turner. He brought Ms. Hart in from the street and likely saved her life. All three executives froze. One of the women slowly lowered into a chair, staring at Micah as if he had walked out of a newspaper headline. You're telling me, she whispered, that this child found Evelyn Hart in an alley? Micah swallowed hard. She fell. She couldn't breathe. I helped her up. No one spoke for several seconds. The room was filled with stunned, disbelieving silence. Finally, the silver-haired man rubbed his forehead. This is unbelievable. Dr. Alvarez looked at Micah. Micah, Evelyn Hart is... But he didn't get the chance to finish. The door burst open for the second time. A younger woman, tears streaking down her face, ran inside. Where is she? Please tell me she's alive. Dr. Alvarez stood. She's stable. You must be... Catherine Hart, she gasped. Her daughter. Micah's breath hitched. Her daughter. Catherine's eyes landed on him next. Is that the boy who helped her? Micah nodded faintly, not sure if he should speak. In 2 steps, Catherine was in front of him. She knelt, tears filling her eyes as she reached out, then paused when Micah flinched instinctively. She lowered her hand, choosing words instead. You saved my mother, she whispered. You saved the strongest woman I know. Micah's throat tightened. She asked me not to leave her alone. Catherine covered her mouth, trying not to cry harder. Dr. Alvarez finally spoke the words no one else could find the calm to say. Micah, Evelyn Hart is one of the wealthiest women in the state. She owns Hart Industries. Thousands of employees rely on her. Micah stared. His brain couldn't process it. That lady? He whispered. The one I found in the alley? Yes, Catherine said softly. Her. You helped her when no one else did. One of the executives added. You didn't just save a life. You saved the heart of our entire company. Micah didn't know what to say. Praise wasn't made for kids like him. Then the door opened again. Slowly, this time. A nurse poked her head in. Ms. Hart is awake. She's requesting the boy. Micah jolted upright. Me? Catherine gave a choked laugh. Yes, sweetheart, you. The executive stepped aside as Micah stood, though his legs trembled. Dr. Alvarez opened the door for him. Micah, she wants to thank you herself. Micah hesitated. Will she be mad? He whispered. Catherine placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Son, she's grateful. More grateful than you'll ever understand. Micah followed them out of the consultation room and down the hallway. Each step felt heavier, unreal, like he was walking in a dream he didn't belong inside. Through the glass, he could see her, Evelyn Hart, propped up slightly in her hospital bed, oxygen tube still in her nose, eyes tired but alert. When she saw Micah, her lips curved into the faintest trembling smile. A nurse opened the door. Micah stepped inside. Evelyn's voice was weak, yet somehow still carried the same quiet power he'd heard in the alley. Micah, she whispered. "Come here." He did. When he reached her bedside, she reached out a fragile hand. This time, Micah didn't flinch. He took it gently. Her fingers curled around his with surprising strength. "You saved my life," she breathed, "and I will not forget you." Micah blinked fast. No adult had ever said words like that to him. Not once in all 12 years of his life. The executives, the nurses, Catherine, they all watched in silence. Because they knew. They were witnessing the moment everything changed. Not just for Evelyn Hart, but for the homeless boy standing beside her, completely unaware of what was coming next. What Evelyn planned to do. What the world would soon learn. And why Micah Turner's life would never, ever be the same again. Micah sat quietly in the corner of Evelyn Hart's new room, a private suite meant for VIPs, not homeless kids with frayed sleeves and worn-out shoes. He tried to make himself small, invisible, even though everyone kept reassuring him he didn't need to. He didn't believe them. People were kind at first, until they weren't. But Evelyn's eyes followed him gently as he sat. The weakness in her body didn't dim the strength in her presence. "Micah," she said softly, "come closer." Micah hesitated, then moved to the chair beside her bed. She studied him. His thin arms, dirt-smudged face, the forced bravado he wore like a spare layer of clothing. "You remind me of someone," she murmured. Micah blinked. "Who?" "A younger version of me." He almost laughed. "Him." "Like her?" Evelyn smiled faintly at his disbelief. "I wasn't always a CEO in a suit. I grew up in a shelter, slept on floors, lived on whatever people handed out." Micah stared at her, stunned. Catherine, who had been sitting quietly nearby, nodded. "It's true. Mom built her entire life from nothing." Evelyn touched her daughter's hand briefly before looking at Micah again. "So tell me," she whispered, "where is home for you?" Micah swallowed hard. I don't have one." The words came out flat, practiced, the kind of truth you learn to say without emotion because emotion makes it hurt more. Evelyn didn't push. She waited. Micah pulled his knees up slightly, arms wrapping around himself. "I sleep behind an old laundromat on Jefferson Street," he said quietly. "It's warm there. The vents blow hot air at night." Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. "You sleep outside?" Micah nodded like it was normal. "Sometimes the shelters let me in, but only if they have space, and only if older guys don't—" He stopped, shaking his head. "Never mind." Evelyn's eyes darkened. "If older boys don't what?" Micah looked away. "Doesn't matter." Dr. Alvarez entered then, checking Evelyn's monitors, but he paused when he heard that last sentence. He didn't say anything, but his jaw tightened. Evelyn exhaled slowly. "Micah, what about school?" Micah shrugged. "I go sometimes." "Sometimes?" Catherine asked gently. "When I can wash up in the gas station bathroom," he admitted. "Kids laugh if you smell weird." The room fell quiet. Micah glanced around nervously. "I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be in here. I know this is for important people." Evelyn frowned. "Who told you you weren't important?" He shrugged again. "Everyone." "No," she said, voice firm despite the oxygen tube. "You matter." Micah's throat tightened. He wasn't used to hearing that, not from teachers, not from strangers, not from anyone. Evelyn continued. Micah, why did you help me? You could have walked away. He stared at his hands. Because nobody should die alone. Catherine felt tears rising again. She stepped back, trying to compose herself. Micah kept talking, quietly, as if confessing a secret he'd never shared. My mom used to say that, before she got sick. Evelyn's eyes softened. Where is she now? Micah hesitated. She died. 3 years ago. The day after my 10th birthday. Catherine turned away, wiping tears. Evelyn reached out with a trembling hand. Micah looked at it, hesitant, then slowly placed his small palm in hers. Her grip was weak, but warm. Micah, she whispered, your mother would be proud of you. Micah blinked fast. You think so? I know so. Something broke in him. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet crack in a heart that had learned to stay hard to survive. He sniffed and wiped his face roughly with the back of his hand. Can I ask you something? But it's stupid. There are no stupid questions, Evelyn said. Why me? He whispered. Why do you want me here? People like you? They don't choose people like me. Evelyn looked at him long and deeply. Micah Turner, she said, strength returning to her voice. The world didn't choose me either. I had to fight to be seen. People walked past me like I was invisible, but I became someone anyway. She squeezed his hand. And you, whether you know it or not, are someone extraordinary. Micah shook his head. I'm just a kid. No. Evelyn smiled. You're the boy who didn't walk away. The room filled with a silence that wasn't empty, warm, full, meaningful. Dr. Alvarez stepped forward. Miss Hart, you should rest. Your heart needs it. Evelyn nodded, but her eyes never left Micah's face. Micah swallowed. Will I be allowed to stay? Catherine crouched beside him. Sweetheart, as long as my mother wants you here, yes. Micah's voice cracked. No one's ever said that to me. Evelyn brushed a thumb over his knuckles. Get some rest, Micah. Tomorrow we talk about your future. My what? He whispered. Evelyn smiled faintly. Your future. You deserve one. Micah didn't know it yet, but what she meant, what she planned, what she was about to set in motion, would change not only his life, but the lives of everyone in the hallway outside that door. And the world had no idea the storm this woman was about to unleash, all because a homeless boy decided to care. The press room buzzed with expectation. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered theories. Many predicted the announcement. Evelyn Hart's retirement, a farewell to the empire she had built. Instead, the hospital doors slid open. Evelyn Hart herself appeared, propped up in her wheelchair, draped in a soft cream blanket. Oxygen tubes traced her face, but her eyes blazed with quiet authority. Micah Turner, now standing beside her, felt the world tilt. Clean clothes replaced his tattered jacket. A comb had been run through his hair. But nothing could prepare him for the faces staring at him. Journalists, security, executives, all waiting to see a fragile old woman announce the end of her reign. Evelyn wheeled herself forward, voice calm but commanding. Good afternoon, she began. Cameras focused, microphones leaned in. I was expected to make an announcement today about stepping down from Hart Industries. A few scribes nodded, scribbling the obvious. She paused, looked down at Micah, and the room held its breath. But today, she continued, voice steady, I am announcing something far more important. She leaned closer, eyes meeting the reporters, unwavering. I am adopting this young man. Micah froze. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Cameras flashed. Some reporters whispered. A few murmured disbelief. Adoption? A billionaire CEO adopting a homeless boy? Evelyn's gaze never wavered from Micah's. I am also establishing a foundation in the name of his mother, a woman who sacrificed everything for her son, and the world never saw her. The room went silent. Shock rippled through every seat. And, she said, voice resolute, he will inherit shares in Hart Industries, because a life saved is a life worth protecting. And this boy saved mine. Micah's knees buckled slightly. For a moment he couldn't speak. Tears gathered at the corners of his eyes, tears he hadn't shed in years. Why? Me? He whispered, voice trembling, almost inaudible to anyone but her. Evelyn reached out, brushing his hair back gently. Because you saved my life. Now it's my turn to save yours. He blinked rapidly, the weight of her words pressing down. It was unreal, impossible. A street boy from an alley, now standing beside the woman whose name moved markets and commanded media empires. The reporters scrambled, some shouting questions, others racing to get the scoop. But Evelyn held up a hand, calm, commanding the room without raising her voice. Let this be a reminder, she said softly, yet every ear in the room caught her words, that courage, kindness, and humanity are the greatest power any of us can possess, and the world must see it. Micah couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears slipping freely now. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to cry, pure, unfiltered relief and disbelief. Catherine stepped forward, embracing him tightly. Welcome to your new life, she whispered. Outside, the world waited. Cameras flashed from the hospital entrance as a sleek, black sedan rolled up. Micah, standing beside Evelyn, took a deep breath. Behind him, the alley, the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness. They were all gone now, replaced with a life he never dreamed could exist. He glanced at Evelyn. She smiled at him, frail yet unshakable. Together they stepped toward the car. The doors opened. Hands clasped, Micah climbed in beside the woman whose life he had saved. The engine started. The city rushed past. And in that moment, the world saw justice, compassion, and redemption unfold. Not as an abstract idea, but in the form of a small boy and the powerful woman whose life he had touched forever. For Micah Turner, the alley was behind him. For Evelyn Hart, the world had been given a lesson she would never forget. And for everyone watching, the story was proof that kindness has consequences far greater than anyone could imagine. If stories like this remind you that real power isn't in status, but in kindness, hit like and subscribe. So you never miss the next story where a single act of compassion reshapes a life, and the world learns what humanity truly looks like again.